Hi there, I'm Trey Baker, founder of the Mustard Seed Company, and welcome to this edition of Trey's Talks to Grow. Today, I want to talk to you about positivity at work. Did you know most of our communication environments look like this scale? I read recently that for every one positive comment that someone shares, there's 6 negative ones that are shared. So most of us are walking around in communication environments that look about like this, with the negative comments being on this side and the positive ones being over here. Now, if you're like me, you've probably read a bunch of information on positivity and you've heard all sorts of things on positive thinking. So before you let your eyes roll to the back of your head, it's not going to be that kind of talk. There's been some significant research done on positivity at work. One of the neat books that's out there is a book called How Full Is Your Bucket by Tom Rath and Donald Clifton. And in their book, they cite a study by a group from the Gottman Institute. And at the Gottman Institute, they determined that there was this magic number, this magic ratio when it came to positive to negative comments as it related to couples, okay? And that magic number was 5 to 1. They followed and did research on several hundred newlyweds, and they were able to accurately predict, 94% accurately predict, the divorce rate amongst those couples simply by using that ratio. The couples that used the 5 to 1 ratio were the ones that were successful in their relationship, and the ones that didn't, unfortunately, were not. So the question becomes, is there a magic number at work? And it turns out there is. It seems that if you're in a working environment and the ratio is less than 3 to 1, less than 3 positive comments for every 1 negative one, that creates a very negative, disengaged working environment. And at the same time, if you're in a working environment where it's 11 to 1, where there's too many positive comments, guess what? That also creates a disillusioned working environment. So you can actually have too many positive comments. So here's the point, and I want to read this to make sure I get it right because this is a great quote, okay? And this came from the book and this came from the study. Work teams that reach a 3 to 1 ratio are significantly more productive than those that do not. Work teams that reach a 3 to 1 ratio, significantly more productive. So, if we're interested in having a significantly more productive workforce, then it seems we should want to create an environment where that 3 to 1 ratio can begin to happen. Now, short of walking around with your encouragement and praise pedometer on, right, so that you can count every single comment that you make, which I'm not suggesting that we begin to do that, what can you start to do? Well, I've got a few tips I want to share with you that you can do that can begin to create the kind of environment where that ratio may begin to happen, and we can tip the scales in our favor. So the first point is this: praise our teams when a project is done. You see, so many times we're ready to move on to the next project, to move on to the next thing, that we don't even stop and praise our teams for the great job we just did. So we have to always remember to stop and praise our teams. Next, look for recognition milestones along the way. Look for recognition milestones along the way. We don't have to wait until the project is done. We don't have to wait till everything's well done. There are probably significant milestones along the way where we could actually recognize our teammates, recognize individuals, and praise them for the job that they are doing. Next point. Use words, gifts, acts, and time. Use words, time, acts, and gifts. Now, these are all ways that people give and receive affirmation. There's words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to run out and buy all of your employees a car, even though I'm sure that would all make them very happy with you. But there's some small things that you can do for people along the way. And we all give and receive affirmation in completely different manners. And by mixing it up, your chance of your praise getting through will be greater. So remember, use words, time, acts, and gifts. And then the last thing, but probably most important, is this: sincerity matters. Sincerity matters. You see, we have to be sincere with our praise and with our recognition if we want to make sure that people are willing to receive it, if we want to make sure that our message is getting through. It has to be authentic. It has to be sincere. So make sure that when you're giving your praise and when you're giving your recognition, it's sincere in its manner. And I believe that just by doing those few things, what we start to do is tip the scales in our favor so that our communication environment looks like this instead of the other way. And guess what? Then no matter what kind of comments you have, coaching comments, criticism, praise, whatever, the chances of those comments penetrating and getting through are much greater when you're working in an environment that looks like this as opposed to the other direction. I'm Trey Baker. That was this month's edition of Trey's Talks to Grow. I look forward to connecting with you again real soon.